Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, Sunday, April 19th. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith with you for Day 2 of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs as we have 4 more series getting underway with Game 1 on this Sunday. Kings-Avs, Habs Lightning, Bruins Sabres, and playoff hockey back in Buffalo. What a sight that will be tonight. And we wrap up the day with Utah and Vegas. 4 more games coming up. First, though, we look back at the initial foray into the Stanley Cup playoffs with yesterday's 3-game slate on the Saturday card. And the Carolina Hurricanes started it off with a workmanlike, solid 2-0 shutout win over the Ottawa Senators yesterday. Very, very solid, top to bottom. You know, I don't think it was a dominant effort by any stretch by Carolina. But when you look at the way that game proceeded, you know, they were a little bit more opportunistic. And to be honest with you, the puck luck was on their side a little bit with the 2 goals. The first goal that was scored by Logan Stankoven hits a stick, an Ottawa player. And yeah, it's still not a great goal to give up for Linus Ullmark, but you could tell that kind of threw him off in that first goal going in. Second goal hits the shoulder of Ullmark, bounces behind him, and then obviously Taylor Hall is able to get the last touch on it and put it into the open net and make it a 2-0 Carolina lead. Ottawa had their chances. You know, they had multiple power plays. They had a 5-on-3 at one point. But unfortunately, Carolina's PK was strong. And for all the criticism we've given him, because this has been a rough year on Frederik Andersen, he had a terrific game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's absolutely no debate in that whatsoever. He was terrific. Now, I know he only faced, around the 20-shot mark. Again, Carolina doing their usual solid job of, limiting chances against, limiting shots against. But when the chances were there to be had, especially on a couple of those Ottawa power plays in the third period, Frederik Andersen was there to shut the door in that game. Unbelievably tremendous tone setter to begin the series with the 2 captains dropping the gloves to begin Game 1 yesterday with obviously Jordan Staal and Brady Tkachuk. That was awesome. You love to see it. And look, I think for Ottawa, even in a losing cause, there's a lot of positives to take away from that game. I thought they played Carolina pretty close. It wasn't a runaway for the Carolina Hurricanes. It's not like they were dominant by any stretch over the Ottawa Senators in a building where they've played very well. I think if you're Ottawa, you say, hey, we were in this game, couple of bounces, went Carolina's way. We had our chances. We didn't finish. They did. Salute to them. But that's the key, Energized. Great point about the Artem Zub injury. It's the last thing they need. He is one of their better shutdown D, and I know they have Thomas Chabot and Jake Sanderson back to offset that a little bit, but Zub is tremendous in his own end. Really, really solid. And the last thing you need with already Clevin and Jensen still out on the back end is another injury. But hats off to Carolina, Alex. They take a 1-0 series lead.
Yeah, and that was a classic-looking playoff game. I said it on Twitter toward the end of that contest where, you could have a game like that that's 2-0 and have just as much pace and excitement as a 7-6 game. That game had the pace of an over game the full 60 minutes. It wasn't the scoring. You had block shots, you had defense, you had guys selling out the entire time at both ends. And it made for an exciting game. Now it's unfortunate for the bets, of course.
How about the block shot sequence by Seth Jarvis at the end when it was 2-0 and they had the empty net extra attack? Unbelievable! I think he had 3 or 4 on one sequence.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And that's what wins, and that's what playoff hockey is about. And that's the change and the difference. And you have to read that for what it is. And we talk about storyboard mode now. That's a game where I can see that momentum from that third period carrying over into the first period of Game 1. There's a couple of spots where I feel like we're going to see similar momentum carry over from the previous game, and that's definitely one of them. That was definitely one of those spots and one of those moments. It's just a good, fun, defensive hockey contest.
No doubt. Like I said, it was a really, really solid game. Don't be fooled. 2-0 can be a good hockey game, can be a great game, can be an exciting game. And I think yesterday that was a proof of that. A great point by Nick Alvento. Obviously, first period overs didn't hit with Carolina, didn't hit with Dallas, didn't hit with really any of the games yesterday. The first period over. The only game that went over for the full game was Minnesota-Dallas, and mostly due to Minnesota, which we will get into right now. Look, I knew there was certainly motivation and incentive for the Minnesota Wild to make a statement. They've been beaten by Dallas before in the playoffs. They haven't won in the first round in 11 years. That was complete and utter domination yesterday. Complete and utter domination by the Minnesota Wild. It started early and it continued. And what's amazing is that I thought they had a real solid road period. They got the early power play goal. The building was rocking early at the AAC. Eriksson X power play marker just took the crowd out of it, and it shouldn't have. But they went dead silent, after that first goal. But Minnesota took the crowd out early. They controlled the flow most of the first period. But then you thought, 1-0 Minnesota. They threw that first punch. Dallas down 1-0 going into the second period. Let's see this Stars team bounce back and have a great period. It got fucking worse for the Dallas Stars. Much worse. In fact, their first period wasn't great, Dallas, and Minnesota was better in the first period. Dallas was even worse. Dallas was 100 times worse in the second period after being down 1-0. And that we didn't see coming. Kaprizov, bam, with an unbelievable shot. Perfect shot, bar down, right under the crossbar, the roof of the net. No chance for Ottinger. Hartman on a direct redirection in front. Perfect tip. What a job by Faber to set that up for Hartman as well on that third goal. And then, of course, and the thing that was noticeable, Alex, about the second period in particular, when it got completely away from Dallas, all over the ice, puck battle, one-on-one battle for a loose puck. They lost every one of them. Minnesota was winning every puck battle all over the ice. It looked like they were out-hustled. They were outplayed. It looked like a Minnesota team that was hungrier, looked faster, wanted it more. That was a horrific hockey game on home ice in a postseason game for the Dallas Stars. Brutal. Absolutely horrific. They were beaten pillar to post. Minnesota dominated them start to finish. I don't want to enough of this nonsense blaming Ottinger. Don't blame him. This is the whole team failed yesterday. This is a team-wide failure. Not one defenseman played well. I'd argue not really one forward played well. I know Robertson got the one goal, but nobody played well. We love Wyatt Johnston. What the hell did he do yesterday? Bupkis, nothing. It was dominance, start to finish, Alex, by the Minnesota Wild. And yeah, I know Dallas fans are going to wrap themselves up in the comfort, get that blanket out, that comfort blanket out, and wrap themselves up in it that we always lose game one. We always lose game one. We're fine. We're fine. We're fine. I'm not so sure you're fine. That was alarming yesterday.
Everybody, I said this to you right before we went on there. Everybody who was wearing green and black in that building failed yesterday. The players on the ice, people on the bench, the fans in the stands. That first period, like you said, you came out sluggish. You came out, looking just absolutely just piss poor. Wild had, like I said, all the momentum, all the speed, all the physicality that they could bring. They get that first goal. And then you start to see the Stars, like I said, unravel even more, taking dumb penalties. A terrible trip late in that first period. And then you have Jake Ottinger actually make some really big saves to keep that a 1-0 game late in that period, where you should have had some momentum in that crowd. You should have had some momentum in that bench. Should have gone back in that locker room and said, hey, you know what? We're down 1-0. We had a bad start, but Otter made some saves. Let's build off that momentum. Let's kill this penalty off, which they did at the beginning of the second period. And then shortly after that, fall apart. You leave Kirill Kaprizov wide fucking open on a corner slot angle where he's able to just bury it right past Ottinger, and that momentum was gone ever since. And the crowd just went dead fucking silent.
On that goal, Alex, anybody care to close the gap? Anybody care on Dallas in a green jersey to limit time and space there on Kaprizov? A good
7-8 seconds of him at the top of the post, and just slides right through, gets the puck on his stick, able to pick his corner and pick his spot. And then the crowd just goes dead silent after that. There's no momentum, no life for anybody wearing green and black the rest of the way. And like I said, Minnesota capitalized. They understood the moment, seized the moment in that second period, and was able to just pile on and bury it. And like I said, this is a Dallas team that, okay, yeah, you can't rely on past laurels. You know, you treated that first goal, Harrison Ek, they felt like it was the same moment where Ottinger got pulled in the conference final last year. It was the same kind of a response in that building, and you cannot afford to have that when you're arguably the better team, at least the favorite team on paper. Okay, and a team where maybe they started reading their tea leaves and started feeling the fact that, hey, we played this team that hasn't gone past the first round in 11 years and we can just coast through. You can't coast through because, as we said in the preview, this is the best Minnesota team of the last 11 years. Whatever that means, it still remains to be seen. Just one game, but as of right now, Dallas is in trouble. If Dallas does not come out with a ton of energy and reverse everything that they did in the last 60 minutes in the first 20 of game 2, they could be going down 0-2 heading up here to St. Paul. And they'll be in some significant trouble at that point. So Dallas has to get their shit together immediately. Everybody in that fucking building has to have a better effort in game 2.
100%. I mean, there's no denying that whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, it would, and look, credit to John Hines. He had to make the very tough decision to say, you know what, you've been our veteran goalie here now for multiple seasons. We're sitting you down. You didn't play great down the stretch. Talking about Philip Gustafsson, of course. And we're going to turn to Jesper Wallstedt, who has been viewed as the future goaltender, the heir apparent here in net for the Minnesota Wild for quite some time. And boy, did he play like it last night. Yeah. Well, I know Dallas was not great, but boy, oh boy, there were some saves he had to make, and he made them, and he was really good in that game.
You look at Dallas' shot chart; all the shots were of quality. Wallstedt had a fantastic game, like he's had fantastic games throughout the season. Hines made the right move of going with the better goaltender, and so far so good after one game.
Yeah. Now, again, Dallas has lost game 1s aplenty. In fact, I think the only game 1 that I can think of off the top of my head was what? I think
Winnipeg.
It was Winnipeg game 1 last
Winnipeg
year.
Game against the second round. Yeah.
Harley -3, tough night. And I like Harley, but yeah, tough night. -3 for, like I said, Wyatt Johnston. I've never seen Wyatt Johnston that bad in a playoff game before. And even the almighty Mikko Rantanen, -3 last night. He was invisible. He couldn't find him with a telescope, except for when he fucking got under the skin of Jesper Wallstedt, and Wallstedt went after him. That's about the only time I noticed.
And in the trip, he's the one who had the trip in the first period too.
That too,
late in the first period. Yeah, that's when you notice. Yeah.
That was a terrible game for Rantanen. He's better than that. He's much better than that. And he's got to be much better than that, or else Dallas not going to go far in these playoffs. He's critical to what they do, and he is definitely going to have to be a lot better here in game 2. Now, again, Dallas has had a history of bouncing back in game 2, but here's why I'm more so I'm not totally, panicking, but I'm more concerned. Minnesota looked faster. Minnesota looked like they were quicker to lose pucks. They won every one-on-one puck battle. It looked like maybe the wear and tear of years and years of runs to the conference finals, maybe wearing this team down a little bit. That's another thing you have to factor in a little bit. Is this team got the gas tank, to make another deep playoff run? Yeah. That's something you got to be a little bit concerned about. And another thing I have to be concerned about, and look, there's been a shit ton of injuries with Dallas this year. I think for them to put the regular season they had together, considering all the injuries they've had, you've got to certainly give the coaching staff and Glenn Gulutzan credit, no question, because they had a lot of injuries to deal with. But as far as Stanley Cup playoffs are concerned, we're not talking about the second coming of Ken Hitchcock here for the Dallas Stars. And we're not even talking about the second coming of Peter DeBoer here for the Dallas Stars when it comes to Glenn Gulutzan's success in the playoffs. And look, it's a small sample size, but again, we go back to the Gulutzan track record as an NHL head coach. He has missed the playoffs all but 1 year between Calgary and Dallas combined. And in that one season, he got the Flames to the playoffs. I think it was 2017. They got swept by the Anaheim Ducks. And now you add yesterday's loss onto the ledger. We're talking about a guy that is now 0-5 in the Stanley Cup playoffs as an NHL head coach, Glenn Gulutzan. 0-5. He's still waiting for his first Stanley Cup playoff win as a head coach. This is on the whole team, but it's on him too. Why didn't you have your team ready to go yesterday? Why were they so flat out of the gate? Yeah. Why were they so lethargic out of the gate? There's got to be everybody top to bottom, personnel and player-wise, has to be better. The coaching's got to be better. Here's your chance now. You haven't won squat in the playoffs if you're Glenn Gulutzan. You've got to make good adjustments now. You've got to bounce back here in game 2 on Monday night, just like the players do.
Yeah, we talked about that all the way back in September. We're doing the season preview for Dallas. We said we trust in this lineup. We know what this lineup has done. We've seen this for years on end. But how will things change with Gulleton? And yeah, so far, like I said, after this was just one game, certainly not the same Dallas that we saw, even with Pete DeBoer's mistakes or controversial moves. But at least DeBoer had his team somewhat fairly ready in those first few games, especially with much more energy at home.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, my goodness, as far as Dallas was so bad yesterday. They're making Terry Edelman look like he gave them the most genius take ever, as far as his Minnesota Wild, that Ryan Hartman is a legit number 1 center, because Ryan Hartman ate him up. He got an assist too on another goal, and he actually looked like he fit in very well on that line. So like I said, it was a horrible game for Dallas, top to bottom. And by the way, their penalty kill, my gosh, it's got to shore things up as well. They gave up 2 power play goals in that game. And they had trouble against the Minnesota power play in the final regular season game as well. But like I said, that now is a huge game coming up Monday night for the Dallas Stars. The Battle of Pennsylvania, certainly less goals than I thought yesterday. That is for sure. And look, Philly wants to play that way. I wasn't convinced in game 1 in Pittsburgh, with some inexperience starting this series for Philly compared to Pittsburgh, that they were going to be able to dictate Philadelphia, but they did. Start to finish, they suffocated Pittsburgh. That was a clinic, surgical, by Rick Tockett's team last night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. What a performance. 3-2, and it's, they're lucky it was 3-2, because that was, to me, a more lopsided game in favor of Philly than a 3-2 final score. They were terrific. They clogged up the middle of the ice. There was no time and space for anybody, really. Malkin's goal, the one goal they scored was just the block shot came right back to him, and I think it kind of fooled Vladar, who was pretty solid otherwise. And like I said, it was just Philadelphia choked off the neutral zone, did not give up many odd man rushes. All the odd man rushes and breakaways were Philadelphia pretty much. Pittsburgh didn't have many at all in that game. And I actually feel bad for Skinner. Skinner played well in defeat for Pittsburgh. I thought it was a solid game from him there in that one. But like I said, Philadelphia got to dictate the pace, and that's why they won. They slowed it down. They actually stayed fairly disciplined. Pittsburgh didn't have a ton of power plays, and boy, when they did, they were horrific on the power play last night. Horrific. They could barely gain entry into the offensive zone with several of their. How many fucking times did they go offside in a row on one of the playoffs? And you could just see Dan Muse doing a slow burn on the bench. He's like, are you guys serious? You can't even stay on side to get anything going on this power play. It was a clinic by Philadelphia, and it was topped off by Porter Martone. I am amazed. I continue to be amazed how good this kid is already. Playoffs, it's no big deal. I'll just show up and make an impact anyway. He's got double-digit points now in 10 games since joining the Philadelphia Flyers. He scores what turned out to be the game-winning goal in his first ever Stanley Cup playoff game on the road. And what a shot it was to beat Stuart Skinner. It was a ripper. There's no chance that Stuart Skinner was going to stop that one. What a job by Rick Tocchet. It was a clinic defensively. And what a goal by Travis Sanheim, too. This guy, criminally underrated defenseman. We've said this for how long now about Travis Sanheim? He had a tremendous game last night. What a goal he scored that made it 2-1 Philadelphia about midway through the third period. And then we got to say it. We got to be fair. Like, he's an all-time great. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame, multiple cups, the gold medals with Canada, World Junior Championships, you name it. I'm not sure we've seen many worse games than that from Sidney Crosby last night. That was a horrible game for him. I hate to say it. You couldn't find him with a damn telescope. Oh, until at the end of the game when he got into it with Sanheim and took a frustration penalty right at the end because he was pissed off and angry about how the game was going for his team and probably him personally as well. That's about the only time we saw him the whole game, when he got into a little tiff there with Travis Sanheim right at the end of that game. Terrible game by his standards. But that speaks to Philly, Alex. Did a great job on Crosby throughout the night, made him a non-factor. But the one scary part is this guy is the ultimate competitor. It's why he's a great player. He's still a phenomenal player. And it's almost like he knows you don't have to tell Sidney Crosby his team wasn't good, and you don't have to tell Sidney Crosby that he personally was bad, that was not a Sidney Crosby caliber hockey game last night. So all I would say to Philly is you'd better have it in stone to defend him as tenaciously, as hard, and make life as difficult on him in game 2 as you did in game 1, because in game 2, he's coming, Sidney Crosby. He knows it, and he will be better. And will Philly be able to handle him again is the big question. But what a start for Philly last night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your goal is going to be to try to stop everybody else in game 2, because you've woken the beast that is Sidney Crosby. He's probably going to be, he may be all that Pittsburgh has to offer. And here's the thing. We talked about that kind of youth versus experience matchup in this matchup, rather. And you just kind of assumed, especially with the way Pittsburgh's been playing of late, that it'd be okay. Philly would have the horses to go up and down and play Pittsburgh style. But for them to command and play a more defensive style, it seems as if their young legs are actually, better suited to kind of wear down Pittsburgh's older core. And so they said by playing that defensive style, they're wearing them down more than going up and down the ice with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh would actually rather have this be a more opened up set. So that's a big edge now for Philly, because Philly can certainly still play you up and down. And like you said, when you got these young guys like Porter Martone, not afraid to take shots and making quality shots on net. Like I said, Skinner had a good game and still got beat. What if Skinner has an off game when Philly decides to play up and down, and this becomes a 6-5 track meet? Then that's when Pittsburgh could get themselves in some serious trouble right now. So I'm really excited to see. I think we're going to see this game open up. I do think we're going to start to see more of the overlooks in game 2, especially if Philly gets on the board early. Pittsburgh knows they're going to have to try and open this game up. We're going to see more of that physicality that we saw in that third period, but Pittsburgh has to be disciplined about it. Like you say, Crosby, of all people, cannot afford to take dumb penalties at any point in game 2. But I definitely think we're going to see that was a feeling out process of a game, which I didn't think it would have necessarily needed a feeling out process. These are two teams that are very familiar with one another, had played each other a couple times heading into the postseason. I thought it would be a bit more opened up, but I think now, after how that game started, like I said, that momentum from that third period, the kind of physicality, I think we see that transfer over in that first period of game 2, and I think that's where we'll start to see things open up from our offensive end.
That's the key. I think that's, I mean, they don't have any desire for a track meet is 100%. And I said that. I just thought Pittsburgh was going to dictate in game 1. They're at home. They're the team with more experience. Flyers and this playoff stuff is new to them, many of their players. Pittsburgh would probably get the first goal, and then things would have to open up from there. Plus, we had the series history on our side. All the games in Pittsburgh had gone over. So, I think it's one of these situations where if you're Pittsburgh, I think you've got to try. I think you got to stretch pass more. You got to get to open up the gap more, because the gap was just too tight. Philadelphia was allowed to keep a tight gap through the middle of the ice last night. And I think if you're Pittsburgh, work on that stretch pass. The stretch pass has to be a more of a element to your offensive attack in game 2. Whether it's Carlson, or Letang, whoever it is on the blue line, you've got to start looking for, a stretch pass and just get the gap to open up. Because that's going to create the speed that you need, through the neutral zone. And to be honest, Pittsburgh didn't show much of that last night, and that's a credit to Philadelphia's tight checking. Yeah, I'm frustrated because I thought Philly had a shot in the series. I did bet Philly and team total over for Philly last night, but I also had Pittsburgh team total over as well, and the over. But I got way too cute in that game, and ended up. But we at least got the Flyers, and we do have the Flyers in the series. So that is why I am happy about the win there for the Philadelphia Flyers. And yes, and I still think it's going 6 or 7 games. We haven't heard the last from Pittsburgh. I would expect them to be better in game 2. Whether they win's another story, but expect them to be better. And that is a great point. Mantha did almost tie it. It was a great save right at the end by Dan Vladar, as Anthony Mantha almost tied that game in the dying moments. All right, let's get into Sunday. We have a quadruple header of playoff action starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. TNT has the afternoon games, starting with LA and Colorado. I believe the A squad's doing this game. It's Kenny, it's Edzo, and it's Bush. We've got Colorado minus 280 home favorites, 5.5 the total here in this game. if I'm wrong, I'll admit it, but I don't see this being a long series. I just don't. I think, and unless Anton Forsberg is going to, and he has been really good down the stretch, unless he absolutely stands on his freaking head, and looks like, Kelly Rudy from the '93 run to the Stanley Cup final. Unless that happens, Colorado's just got too much speed. LA's defense is too slow, too old. I don't trust C.C. Dumoulin, an older Drew Doughty, really any of these guys to be able to deal with Colorado throughout a 7-game series. There's been no evidence head-to-head between these two teams, Kings and the Avs, that LA can handle Colorado. Colorado's 8-2 in the last 10 meetings. And what is staggering about this series is that the last 7 head-to-head meetings, Colorado has scored 4 goals in all of them. 7 straight. 7 straight times they've scored 4 goals or more against the LA Kings. And in 9 of the last 10 head-to-head meetings, they have scored at least 4 goals against the LA Kings. So that to me is the number one look for me. I'm going to go just straight to the team total here. Colorado over 3.5. It's a reasonable enough price. Minus 125 at Pinnacle, minus 126 at FanDuel, minus one. It actually gets up to minus 140 at BetMGM from what I'm seeing. So make sure you shop around. Try to get in that minus 125, minus 130 range for Colorado team total over 3.5. And I'm going to take it one step further here in this one. I'm going to go with Colorado to score in the first 10 minutes. It's a prop that it's a market that I think we're going to end up getting used to betting, or I'm going to be accustomed to betting it more, using it more here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And look, this is an early start for both teams, and they're both out west. This is 1:00 p.m. This game's going to start in Denver here at Ball Arena. But it's even worse for LA, because they're a Pacific time zone team compared to the Mountain time zone here of the Colorado Avalanche. So at Bet365, that first 10 minutes, Colorado to score is a pretty solid price there at plus 135 is what you can get with it there. I like it. Now, the total, here's the thing with it is 5.5 at some spots. I lean over, but I could see what our guy in the chat is saying here. Kenny woo woo woo. Good to see you, Kenny. 4-1. I could see that being a final score, and it stays under because the Kings just don't do enough. So I'm on the fence with that. I will say this though about the total, especially with it being 5.5. It has gone over 5.5 in this series. I'm just going back and doing the math on this. I believe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the last 10 meetings have eclipsed over 5.5. My concern, though, is still you're probably going to need Colorado to do a lion's share of this, carrying the load, if you will, as far as the full game over. So maybe I do dabble in that, but primary looks are goal in the first 10, Colorado, plus 135, as well as Colorado team total over 3.5. Alex, what do you think here? Kings, Avs.
Yes, so just to kind of backtrack, I have the exact series order in this matchup. I have Colorado to win games 1, 2, 4, and 5. LA to win game 3. So obviously that takes care of me as far as sidewise goes. But the two things that I like early for Colorado, I like that goal in the first 10 minutes. I was actually able to grab plus 125 at Bet Online. I know there's not a lot of books that have that option. So if you can't get that 135, there is a 125 available with an offshore. And I also like Colorado Avalanche alternate team total in the first period over 1.5 plus 240 over at FanDuel. I think they can come out with at least 2 goals of their own early in that first period. So at plus 240, we'll go over 1.5 for the first period team total, and then the goal in the first 10 minutes at plus 125.
All right, there you go. Good stuff. As far as props here for Colorado and LA, very interesting that Josh Manson is there. His status is still in doubt, but really, other than that, it's looking like Colorado is going to have a fairly healthy lineup. And even then, it's not like he's been ruled out for sure. I think it's more of a game time decision when it comes to Josh Manson here in this matchup this afternoon. But for goal props here, looks like as far as lineups are concerned, Lekkonen's been a good playoff guy. Parker Kelly, I'm seeing him with Brock Nelson and Valeri Nichushkin. So if this is true, And I'm not sure if this is true. This could be, from a couple days ago. We got to see it updated. Again, keep an eye on this stuff. We'll get the lineups confirmed 30 minutes before puck drop during the pregame skate. But even if he isn't on the second line, I mean, it's hard not to try to bet Parker Kelly right now. He's been certainly one of those unsung heroes. He's shattered his previous career high as far as goal props are concerned. So Parker Kelly, and yes, Landon, you're just hitting on what I was about to. He's a playoff player. He's been a playoff player for Colorado. Big Val, Valeri Nichushkin. This is usually his time of year where he elevates. And look, the regular season, he had his ups and downs this year. But I think because of that, you're getting plus 350, 340 in some spots for him to score this afternoon. That's tremendous value for a guy that we know has been producing in the playoffs before, in the past for the Colorado Avalanche. That's excellent value for Valeri Nichushkin. Call on me, Valeri. Yeah, Valeri Nichushkin. That's a little Steve Winwood, for those of you wondering. But yeah, that is definitely a great price, I think, for Valeri Nichushkin as far as finding the back of the net. I don't want to go too nuts on LA props because I don't know how much scoring they're going to do, and I like Wedgwood and the way he's played this year, and obviously we expect him to be the Game 1 starter here for the Colorado Avalanche this afternoon. But as far as it goes, like I said, I know Jonathan says he's concerned. Byfield was great down the stretch, but I know Jonathan's voiced concern about the fact that it's almost like the NBA player when they're focused on defending the other guy, the other point guard, the other player, their offense kind of suffers because of it. And I think that's what Jonathan's alluding to. They're going to ask Quentin Byfield to try to be, the line that's out there against Nathan McKinnon throughout this series, and it could take away from his, focus on getting involved offensively or producing as much, offensively here in this series. So that's just something to monitor here moving forward. But yeah, those are some of the props. I think for LA, if I were to go in a different direction, I don't know why, but I could see this being and look, this is where they got Artemi. Artemi Panarin's going to have a huge series too. This is what they got him for. You're going up against a team that can score, and can Artemi Panarin help you out in that regard? Laferriere's kind of the guy, and Scott Lawton too. I mean, if I'm looking at down the board players for the Kings as far as props, Laferriere, Armia, and Lawton are guys that I think stand out and I think have shown up in playoffs past and have the potential maybe to be difference makers here for the LA Kings if they hope to, at the very least, be competitive here in this series against the Colorado Avalanche. All right, next game. This is also an afternoon game. It is the second of the 4 this afternoon, also on TNT. We've got Montreal and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay minus 180, home favorites, 6 the total. I believe this is the Brendan Burke Panger broadcast team doing this game down in Tampa Bay. We've got, again, Lightning minus 180, home favorites. The total here sitting at 6, shaded to the over here in this matchup. Jakub Dobeš and Andrei Vasilevsky going to be your goaltenders. We are starting the playoffs with no Victor Hedman, it looks like, for Tampa. Pontus Holmberg still out as well. And for the Montreal Canadiens, obviously they've got a couple defensive injuries on the back end, especially on the right side. Alex Carrier, upper body injury. We'll see if he's able to suit up. It was looking like in practice that the status for him is looking better than it did. So I think there's a good chance he might be able to suit up here in this game for the Habs. But obviously no Noah Dobson to begin this series for the Montreal Canadiens, and they will certainly miss him. Like I said, I did lean a little bit to the Habs. I did do a tiny little series sprinkle on Montreal, but more so invested in the 6 and 7 stuff with Montreal and Tampa Bay. 6 games, 7 games. I did the Montreal 4-2, 4-3, Tampa Bay 4-2, 4-3 exact series. I think it's a long series. I mean, I don't think either team's going to run over the other here in this series, just based on it. And there's a very concerning stat here about Tampa Bay. They're 4-12 in their last 16 playoff games, if you could believe it. Now, I know they had Florida's and they've had some real tough opponents. You could argue Montreal, with their inexperience, now just tasting the playoffs, this young core for the second year and only the second series as far as that's concerned. But like I said, 4-12 is 4-12, in your last 16 playoff games. Now, are the Lightning ready to flip the script and turn the page? That's going to end up being the question here in this one. I'm going to take a shot Montreal first goal, first period, like I did with Minnesota. Statement. we're here to compete. We're here to show that we're going to be in this series. I like that more than the plus 150 for the full game. And considering I took a little shot with them to win the series, Montreal, I'm not running to bet plus 150 here on Montreal in game one, but I think I could see them getting on the board early. And I know we've had those issues for months, about Jakub Dobiš at times giving up an early goal. Down the stretch in the second half of the season, he was a little bit better at not giving up, that early goal. It'll be interesting to see, but I'm going to definitely be looking at that Montreal first goal, first period here in game one. I will bet 5.5 live maybe to the over, but I'd need 5.5 to do it, because the one thing we saw in the last game was the goaltending was pretty good. It was a bit more of a cagey affair, that late regular season game that Montreal was able to win against Tampa Bay. And I could see that maybe being a bit the case here as far as maybe a little tighter in the early going. But again, I am going to take a shot there. Montreal first goal, first period. I do like some props, which I'll mention in a minute. Alex, what do you think here? Montreal, Tampa Bay.
I like that look a lot as well. First goal, first period for Montreal. You can get plus 160 now over at FanDuel. I'm taking a shot with Montreal. First period, correct score to lead, 1-0 at plus 600. And I have a bargain bin on a first goal score for Montreal in this spot. So I do like those things first period. But I have a second period bet that I'm betting pregame as well. Both teams to score plus 142. I don't think we'll have time to grab that in the second period if we wait live. So get that at FanDuel, plus 142. Both teams to score in the second period. But I'm looking at everything Montreal first period. First goal of first period, 1-0 correct score after 20. And I'll mention my first goal score later on.
The second period goal in first 10 minutes, I think Nick mentioned it in the chat earlier. It cashed in all 3 games yesterday, which is true. We got second period goal in the first 10. So it's 3-0 in the playoffs. Second period goal in the first 10 minutes. It'll be fascinating to see if that continues today. Because, again, yesterday we saw 3 first period unders. All right? There was only one game that had a goal in the first period, and that was Minnesota-Dallas. And even that game stayed under in the first period. But then in all 3 games yesterday, we saw an opening 10 minutes of the second period goal scored. Will that continue today? That's going to be a fascinating thing to monitor here in this one. Goal props for Montreal. Now, look, I'm not going to ever say don't bet Cole Caulfield. He's obviously a game breaker, a difference maker, incredible season, 50 goals, you name it. That I wouldn't talk anyone out of that. I think Tessier, Newhook, Demidov had some chemistry. Zach Bolduc looks like he's going to be the one in the lineup. There was some question about, who's going to get in. Is Brendan Gallagher going to get in? Is Joe Veleno going to get in? Is Zach Bolduc going to get in one of those last forward spots? It'll be interesting to see how it goes. But like I said, Caulfield, the one I like is Slavkovsky, because I think this is a guy that's elevated in big moments. We saw what he did for Slovakia at the Winter Olympics. I think he's finally seeing what he can be as far as a big body, get to the net, and make a difference. And he is starting to show the kind of offensive tools he has. He's a big guy. He's got the hands to make plays, to finish in and around the net, and we're seeing that. And I think he doesn't get scared of the bigger moments. And I think we've seen that in the past from Juraj Slavkovsky. And normally Juraj Slavkovsky's in that plus 200 or even plus 180 range, but now you're getting him closer to plus 230, plus 250. To score a goal. So a little bit better price there as far as his props are concerned. For Tampa Bay, we're going to have to see how this goes. But, Anthony Cirelli is someone I find that ups his level of play in the playoffs at times as far as offensively and the impact he makes at the offensive end. Nick Paul, I've talked about how he scored against Montreal before. This feels like a Nick Paul prop game, possibly. Now, again, we'll see what the lineups are moving forward into game one, pre-game, when the skate happens 30 minutes before. There was talk that maybe Gonzalez is with Point and Kucherov. Might be Hagel there. You never know. But Hagel, Cirelli, Gensel was the line when Hagel returned. So keep an eye on that. I'm fascinated to see what Cooper does with Point and Kucherov. Is Gonzalez there or somebody else there? Whoever's in that spot, left wing, top line. Could be some value there as far as their goal prop. All right, let's go to the night action here. And yes, the return of Stanley Cup playoff hockey in Buffalo, New York. It's going to be one hell of an atmosphere at KeyBank Center. Boston Bruins taking on the Buffalo Sabres. We've got Buffalo minus 160 home favorites. 6 the total here in this game. I can't wait to see what that building's like. It's going to be a raucous environment. The intros when the players came out to the ice for the home playoff games, and I'm going back to 2006 and 7 with this: Drury, Briere, Pominville, Ryan Miller, Brian Campbell, Thomas Vanek, all those Sabre players from that team back in the Derek Roy, all those, who was actually a guest of ours years ago on the show. All those players that were obviously on those Buffalo playoff teams. The intros when the players hit the ice were incredible, and the crowd noise was deafening in that building. Like I said, I'm excited to see how this goes as far as Buffalo tonight, as far as the crowd and how they come out in their first playoff game. Now, there's a debate on this. There's some people that think, well, not a ton of playoff experience for this Buffalo Sabres team. Like, the guy that's probably got the most playoff experience with this group, certainly up front, I guess you could say Alex Tuch a little bit with his Vegas days, Ryan McLeod with his Oilers days, Jason Zucker has certainly seen some playoff hockey. But really, outside of that, like I said, it's new territory for a lot of these Sabres players. But I think the fact that the crowd is going to be so amped up, they're going to be so excited. Now, you could say the adrenaline flowing through their veins for this first home playoff game in, 15 years for the franchise. It could work against them, too, because they're so amped up, they make mistakes, and maybe that's the case, too. So I think it's a frenetic start. I like first period over here for sure. I don't know about full game over, and I know we're 3-0 first period unders. Okay, we're not going 8-0 first period unders in game ones. One of these damn games is going to go over in the first period. And I think when you look at the way this sets up here with Boston and Buffalo, this is a good first period over candidate. I think it's a really good first period over candidate because we've often seen Boston, in these last few games down the stretch, pour it on early in games. And I think we're going to see that kind of a frenetic start here between these two teams. I'm also going to look for a live goal in the first 10 minutes. I'm going to be on Buffalo to score in the first 10 minutes, plus 140, and I have a feeling Alex may like that look as well. But I'm also going to look toward just a goal being scored in the first 10 minutes. Now, I'm not laying it at minus 150 right now because that's the current price before the game at Bet365. We're going to wait for that thing to drop, and all it'll take is a minute and a little bit for that to drop in a good enough price to bet it. So that's what I'm waiting on here because I think we will see a little flurry of offense here right out of the gate between the Bruins and the Sabres in this one. I mean, I just don't like Buffalo enough at minus 160. I'm not going to touch them in this price range. I'd prefer, if you're going to bet Buffalo, the early look, maybe a first period puck line, which maybe I dabble in. But more so, I like the goal in the first 10 for Buffalo. I will bet just a goal to be scored in the first 10 once the price drops a bit. And I do like the first period over here as well with Bruins and much more than the full game over. We'll see about the full game over. You have to keep in mind it's going to be Jeremy Swayman for Boston and UPL, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, picked it back at Pickle Peppers here for the Buffalo Sabres, who had a really good second half of the season. So it could be one of those games where you get the goals early, slows down a little bit after that. Alex, what do you think here? It'll be awesome to see playoff hockey back in Buffalo, Bruins Sabres.
This is going to be a fun moment. I really believe we're going to see just absolute insanity and electricity in the first several minutes of this game. Like I said, this is a crowd that's been feverishly waiting playoff hockey back in their town for the first time in 15 years, and I think we see it spill over onto the ice. I like goal in first 5 minutes, plus 170. I grabbed that at FanDuel, along with Sabres to score first goal, first period, plus 110. I thought I was stunned to even get a plus price. I thought I'd be laying a price with that. I'm sure that might close as a favorite before puck drop too. So I'd grab those sooner than later. But I think we see that energy and momentum. But I also like first period over, 1.5 minus 122, and I like both teams to score here, plus 176 as well. Boston's a team that certainly, even with their road troubles, but they know that they'll certainly have the chance to get their lick back after possibly giving up the first goal early in that contest. And like I said, with that kind of potential of just to be an electric crowd, Boston might have that opportunity to kind of tame things down by getting a goal back. I could easily see Buffalo first, Boston second. So if you're looking at goal scorer props live, I'd maybe take a look at that angle. Buffalo to get on board first. So if you look for a first goal scorer with Buffalo, maybe look for somebody like a Pasternak or someone to get us that second goal at a better adjusted price. But this is going to be a fun 20 minutes of hockey to start, and then we'll see things maybe kind of wind down. So that's why I'm not on the full game over as well. I also have a bargain bin from this one as well. Two bargain bins today. This is my second bargain bin special comes from this game.
Yeah, this is going to be something I should actually start thinking about tracking this as a betting angle, as far as moving forward. First period overs because of just the manic and frenetic energy in a situation where a team is hosting a playoff game for the first time in several years, like Buffalo will be tonight. Like those are the games where I just see it's just an explosion early.
Yep.
And maybe even for the home team, and even because they're so keyed up, no pun intended, because it is KeyBank Center, but they're just so amped up for the game that they could kind of maybe open up offensive chances for the other side. So again, I'm aware yesterday 3 games, 3 first period unders in the games, and obviously as far as full game under, 2 of the 3 went under for the full game as well. Doesn't mean all 8 games in the first, doesn't mean all 8 series and all 8 game ones are going to be first period unders. This to me is a spot for a first period over here with Boston and Buffalo, and just that frenetic energy that I think we're going to see coming out of the gate. We'll see. Maybe it's, by the way, 5-2 to the first period over in the last 7 head-to-head meetings between the Bruins and Sabres. So 5 of the last 7. As far as the head-to-head have gone over in the first period. As far as props for this game, just a couple I want to point out here. I'm all in on Zach Benson here for the series. Just as a series over, I'm not obviously unloading huge money on the props, but I am betting Zach Benson game to game in this series to score a goal, especially at the prices you're getting. That guy's got the prototypical the profile of a player that's going to make things happen here in the playoffs for Buffalo. He goes to the net, goes to the greasy areas, the tough areas of the ice, doesn't mind taking punishment. He's fearless. He's got a little more offensive flair than you'd think. That line, and if Lindy sticks with it to begin this series, Zach Benson, Josh Norris, Josh Doan, that line could provide a ton of pain, agony, and blues to the opponent here, including Boston in this series. That's going to be a hard-working line. That's going to be a line that's got the capabilities to finish. Doan can finish. Norris can finish. Don't look now. Norris is heating up too. I don't hate looking at any of those players on that line for Buffalo here. I think that's going to be a line that people are going to look back on this Buffalo run. Let's say they make a run, Alex, and they win this series and they go deep. We're going to look back on it and say, boy, that Zach Benson, Josh Norris, Josh Doan line, they played a huge role in Buffalo's success here in these playoffs. And he heated up down the stretch too, Norris. We know what Doan is. Doan's phenomenal. Doan is great on the puck, away from the puck. His defensive instincts are good. But Josh Norris scored in back-to-back games down the stretch, 3 of the last 5. You could tell he was starting to get comfortable for the Buffalo Sabres. I like his goal prop, Benson, Doan. I like the whole trio. And I know the focal point, the focus for Boston, too, is going to be on Thompson Tuck, that top line, probably a little bit on Zucker as well with what he was able to do in the second line. So more of Marco Sturm's defensive focus probably goes to those guys. Maybe sleeping a bit on Benson, Doan, and Norris. That's the line I think is going to do some damage here in this series for Buffalo, Alex.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like I said, there's a bargain bin that I like from that spot that you talked about. We'll mention a little bit later.
There you go. It might be one of the players mentioned. Mark Kastelik, we were on the Betcast, the Patreon exclusive live Betcast. And by the way, someone was asking, this should be a Betcast night. I think it was Steven in the chat saying this should have been a Betcast night. Well, we're going to make it up to you, Steven. We got 2 Betcasts this week, okay, for Patreon members only. 2 Stanley Cup playoff live Betcasts. We're going to announce it obviously on the day of, but they will be this week, both of them. And like I said, one will be for the Eastern games early in the night. One will be for the Western games later in the night. So like I said, we're looking forward to those 2 later this week. So those are the props. Definitely I like Buffalo, that one line. If they're together, I think they're going to make an impact for Boston. It looks like Geekie, Lindholm, Pasternak, Morgan Geekie. I mean, obviously you're not getting bargain bin prices for Morgan Geekie, but he's a player that's going to need to produce offensively for the Bruins. He's certainly capable of it. There's no question. And you're still getting, plus 275 in some spots for a guy like Morgan Geekie. Still pretty good, as far as a goal prop price for him. Pavel Zacha was great down the stretch. And it looks like even, there was a question, would James Higgins be in the playoff lineup? Oh, yeah, he's going to be in the playoff lineup. Looks like they've got him with Minton and Husnudinov. That's like the three big components of your future right there for the Boston Bruins on one line. Husnudinov, Minton, and Higgins. I don't feel as bullish about their line compared to Buffalo's third line contributing, but I wouldn't be shocked if they make an impact at some point. Now Higgins looks like he's taking a little bit more time to get acclimated and comfortable in the NHL compared to his fellow rookie counterpart, Porter Martone, in Philadelphia, who's hit the ground running. But he's still a very talented player, still someone you're going to have to pay attention to in this series if you're the Buffalo Sabres. All right, next up, the last game for this Sunday NHL slate. We've got the Utah Mammoth taking on the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas minus 150, home favorites, 6 the total here in this game. Obviously, strong finish to the season for Vegas under John Tortorella. And, I said this, I think, on a VSiN spot. VSiN with our guy Matt Humans, our good pal, the other night. Said this about Utah. We've made some money at times with Utah this year. We've been on all their overs down the stretch. They've been a huge over team down the stretch, full game overs, the remarkable first period overrun. Jonathan, for some reason, I've lost track of what the exact first period over record is. It's 14-2 or something like that with the Utah first period overs. And obviously they've been pretty good full game overs as well. Great team to back, fun team to watch. Dylan Gunther, Logan Cooley, Clayton Keller, terrific offensive capabilities, but there's still some concerns I had down the stretch with them at the defensive end of the ice. And we said it on the playoff preview show about this series. You cannot be liking the downward form and the downward trajectory of Karel Vejmelka going into this series. You can't like it at all. Okay, he was not good down the stretch. That Edmonton game, and I know they won the Edmonton game, but they didn't win it because of Karel Vejmelka. He was a freaking puddle in the crease in that game. He was terrible. And they won it in spite of him. I'm like, what the hell? How are you letting some of these goals in? But look, he's the guy. It's not going to be Vitek Vanacek. Andre Tourigny, he's started him a shit ton of games over the last 2 years because he still has confidence in him, but you cannot be happy. I mean, all the key goaltending metrics for Karel Vejmelka just cratered, just absolutely just went down into the gutter down the stretch. Goals against, save percentage. If you looked at goals saved above average, goals saved above expected. Oh, his numbers, I'm seeing -8s floating around with some of Karel Vejmelka's goals saved above average numbers. Not what you want going into the playoffs. And so that the goaltending is a major concern and worry for me here with the Utah Mammoth. Meanwhile, I'm all of a sudden not as concerned about Vegas's goaltending. With Aiden Hill, I was concerned. But now with Carter Hart in there, he has been really steady down the stretch for the Vegas Golden Knights. He is a guy that's played in big games before, World Junior Hockey Championship. He's got that great familiarity working with and, playing under John Tortorella from their days with the Philadelphia Flyers. So it's not really a surprise that he is, and he said this on interviews. He was with Darren Millard and Gary Lawless there on the Vegas postgame the other night, talking about how I love I love John Tortorella as my coach. He's going to tell it like it is, but he's going to always let you know where you stand, which is very, very important. He said he's got no issues with John Tortorella. Thinks he's a great coach, love playing for him. And you can tell there's a great camaraderie there, coach to goalie, here in this Vegas situation. So we'll see what happens with Carter Hart. And like I said, 2 best games under Tortorella were on the road. Yes, they were. The Edmonton win, that was his single best performance, no doubt. That 5-1 win against Edmonton, he was tremendous in that game as well. And I thought he played well in the overtime win against Colorado, no question, Carter Hart. Now, again, they didn't have Makar in that game, and waning motivation because they had already locked up the first in the Central, first in the West. But at the same point in time, he was very good in both games. And right now, he's got the edge over Vejmelka on paper in this series. And with current form, there's no doubt Hart's current form was better than Vejmelka. down the stretch. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no argument to be made. He was the better goalie down the stretch. So I think it's a tough ask for Utah. It's almost that element, and getting back to what I said on the VSiN spot with Matt Humans the other night, you got to learn to lose sometimes before you learn how to win. And I kind of feel there's a little bit of that here with Utah, especially on the road. Now, I do think they're going to be a tough fucking team for Vegas to deal with at Delta Center later in this series, in Game 3 and Game 4. I could see this being, 2-0 Vegas at home, and then it's 2-2, going back to Vegas for Game 5. I think that home environment for Utah, that's going to be tough for Vegas. And you're going to see Utah probably play even better there. But I think it's going to be a little bit of a tough ask here in Game 1 in Vegas. Don't love the trajectory here, like I said, of the goaltending of Utah down the stretch, the chances that were given up by the Utah Mammoth as well. Let's not for now, it was their finale and not a lot on the line, but they gave up 5 to St. Louis. On the road, they gave up 4 to Calgary. They gave up 4 to Vancouver on the road, before that. We also saw them give up 5 to Edmonton, 4 to Carolina. Those teams are in the playoffs. So there's a lot of 4s or more being allowed by this Utah team down the stretch. So I like the Vegas team total here over 3.5. And yes, I'm going to be on the bifecta here. I know I like the bifecta in Pittsburgh last night, and it didn't get there, but I'm going to the well with this one. First period overs have been strong for Utah. First full game overs as well. And not to mention, I know the Vegas first period over phenomenon's cooled off a little bit second half of the season. No doubt it has. But in the playoffs, that building at the fortress there, as they call it, T-Mobile Arena, I think it'll be back to a little bit more of a louder, more rambunctious environment tonight. I think it'll fuel a little bit of a frenzy of goals early in the game. So, yeah, Vegas team total over and over bifecta here for me. Alex, what do you think Game 1, Utah-Vegas?
Yeah, I'm right there with you in that thought process of, like, say, you got to learn how to lose first before you can learn how to win. And that's why I took that Utah 2-1 after 3 game spot. I think this is the game they lose out of the first 3. And I think they'll be able to wake up and get things rolling the second game and certainly that third game back home at Delta Center. But this is going to be, like I said, Vegas. That building is going to be rocking. Their whole, sideshow to start the postseason is going to be grand. And I think, Utah, this is, rarefied air for that group, that former Coyotes group. They didn't have a lot of playoff experience. They could be a bit overwhelmed early, I think, by the atmosphere in Vegas, and I could see some goals early. So I like the first period over. Playing it small early because it's minus 118. I'm seeing at FanDuel. Obviously want to wait a few minutes to try and grab some more at plus money. So I'll be hitting this a little bit harder live. But first period over is only played for me pregame.
I agree with Jonathan, too, with Yamamoto. I mean, the second line, good value, 100%. He's had chances. He's kind of been snake bit a little bit. Like, he could easily have had more goals than he's had. Playing with Cooley and Gunther, but he's up there. He's worth a bet. Same with Lawson. Lawson Krause is going to be a guy with his size, his frame, and on that top line, it looks like to begin the playoffs with Schmaltz and Keller. He's the prototype of someone that could make an impact for Utah. And I do think Utah will find the back of the net here. As well as Carter Hart played down the stretch, I don't think he's shutting them out tonight. That I think we still could invest in Utah props here tonight, even though I think Vegas probably wins the game. For me, on the Vegas side, Marner, Eichel, Stone. It looks like there's a good chance Torts is going to roll his 3 big guys there right away on the top line. Dorofeyev is someone that I think could be the leading goal scorer in this series. I do have a plus 550 prop on Pavel Dorofeyev to lead the series in goals. And I think it's worth a shot. He's definitely someone that's going to, especially on these power plays, it's almost like they look for that one-timer, that shot from Dorofeyev. He's someone that's certainly going to be, I think, a threat offensively for Vegas. Brett Howden, I keep going back to Brett, but Brett Howden starting this series from the looks of things on the second line here for the Golden Knights with close shave Barbashev, and with Dorofeyev. And I think Brett Howden's going to be one of these players that in the playoffs could make an impact for the Vegas Golden Knights. I don't know if like I said, I didn't look it up. Maybe I should have, but you can't do everything when you're trying to prep for these shows, but I'm pretty sure Howden scored a goal against Minnesota or in some playoff games last year. I think he at least scored 1 or 2. Like, he's just someone, I think, especially if he's going to be on the second line for Vegas, he's got the potential to chip in and make things happen. And this is a bit of a crazy one, but I've seen this guy, for Washington in his Capitals days, all of a sudden, here he is in the playoffs scoring a big goal at an unexpected moment. Nick Dowd. This one's a little bit more of a reach. But Nick Dowd is one of those players, for the Vegas Golden Knights that if he finds the back of the net here tonight or any point in this series or in the playoffs for the Vegas Golden Knights, I certainly wouldn't be completely shocked by that. Another thing to point out is Riley Smith for Vegas. It's a bit dicey with this guy. It's, you never know what you're going to get, but he has had big moments for this franchise in the past. It's funny. All of Riley Smith's best play has mostly been with Vegas in the past, but he did score, back-to-back games, to end the regular season. So maybe if you're going to think that he's found something here, a little bit of a hot streak going into game one here of the playoffs, that, hey, maybe Riley Smith at plus 525, maybe a worth a look. There you go. Howden had a 2-goal game and a 1-goal game. I knew it. This brain doesn't always fail me, and it didn't this time. Jonathan's backing me up on that. I knew it. I knew Brett Howden had a pretty good playoffs last year against Minnesota. So, yeah, I like Brett Howden for Vegas. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he makes an impact offensively here in this series. And there's one of our friends of the show, Andrew McGinnis, former Ice Guys member. I see him in the chat. He must be stoked today. He probably is on pins and needles waiting for this fucking Montreal Canadiens playoff series to start against Tampa Bay. We wish certainly the Canadiens all the best. Andrew's making a strong case, it looks like, for Alex Newhook in this series to be one of those players to make a impact, a little down the radar, under the radar, if you will, for the Canadiens in this series. And what's funny about Newhook is, let me bring up the numbers here. He did have a pretty decent close to the season as far as, I think, offensively. I'm just looking at the numbers for Newhook. He scored in a couple of games. He has scored before against Tampa. And he so it'll be interesting to see. And he's going to get ice time because looks like he is, as we mentioned, going to be with Demidov and Tessier on that second line. So, yeah, we're excited, Andrew, for you, for your Habs and that series. I mean, I can't wait for it. All right, shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Check out wizardsportspicks.com, NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, daily premium picks available, long-term subscription passes as well at wizardsportspicks.com. And, of course, patreon.com/Ice Guys, just $10 per month. Goalie charts, totals charts, daily betting cards, sides, totals, player props posted each and every day on the Patreon page. And also 2 Patreon exclusive live betcasts for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs coming up this week. This week, we've got 2 betcasts for you. So make sure you get on board now before those betcasts later this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. $10 per month. And again, your membership goes a long way to supporting the show and keeping it going long term. So check it out. Get on board. Just $10 per month. Patreon.com/Ice Guys.
And also check out the Ice Guys store, iceguys.myspreadshop.com. Springtime is here. Playoff time is here. Is a great time to grab yourself a hoodie, a t-shirt, a mug. We've got caps. We've got bags. We've got all kinds of wonderful accessories as well as clothing, apparel. You can take advantage right now and grab it over at iceguys.myspreadshop.com.
Here's someone that I think is going to score a goal. Referencing Andrew saying he thinks that second line could have to be more of a difference maker offensively for Montreal. Josh Anderson, if he plays, I could see him making an impact. Josh Anderson, he's someone that in the playoffs, especially when the physicality quotient ramps up, he can help you. So it'll be interesting to see if he has that moment where, whoa, Josh Anderson, big goal for Montreal. Wouldn't shock me. All right, bargain bin special of the night. Best bets coming up right after we hear from our great Ice Guy sponsors.
Wizard Sports Picks, featuring the finest handicappers in the universe. Sharp insights, trusted picks, and relentless results. We strive to help you become consistent winners. This is Wizard Sports Picks.
All right, bargain bin special of the night. And no, we didn't have anything on the board that came through for us yesterday. But boy, Anthony Mantha came close. He was almost tied it for the Pittsburgh Penguins in a game that they didn't even deserve to win. Philadelphia was the much better team, but yet there they were, almost tying the game, courtesy of Anthony Mantha in the dying seconds. But a big save by Dan Vladar to preserve the victory for Philadelphia last night. So we got close with that one, but we'll see if we can get a bargain bin special winner or two on the board here for this Sunday. Alex, we'll start with you. Bargain bin special of the night.
Yeah, I got a pair of them. And first, we'll start with that game one with Montreal and Tampa Bay. So we like the Habs to get things on the rolling on the board first. I think the man who scores that first goal will be Nick Suzuki. You can get him first goal scorer over at FanDuel plus 1,600. That'll be my first bargain bin special. My second one, we go to that Buffalo-Boston game. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of energy and electricity in that building over at KeyBank Arena in Buffalo. I think one Sabre that will get on the board will be Peyton Krebs. You mentioned about how everybody's going to be looking at that second line. Everybody's going to be looking at Thompson and Tuck on that first line. You get Peyton Krebs, anytime goal scorer, plus 410 on that first line. That's my second bargain special for the night.
Good stuff indeed. Yeah, I'm going right to Buffalo, Boston, and I'm going to two players on that line I talked about for Buffalo. Two Buffalo Sabres for bargain bin special for me, both from that line. The only one that's not going to be a bargain bin special from that line, believe it or not, is Josh Doan. And you know how we love, and I still have bet Josh Doan to score. But the two that I'm going to go with for bargain bin special of the night, Josh Norris, plus 320 at DraftKings, heating up down the stretch right when you want him to. Because, look, he was kind of quiet for a bit. Even when Buffalo was winning, Josh Norris was kind of quiet, not down the stretch. He's gotten it going. He enters this series against the Bruins, scoring in back-to-back games for the Sabres, 3 of the last 5 as well. Josh Norris for Buffalo, plus 320 for me for my first of the two Sabre bargain bins, and the other is going to be the guy I mentioned. Don't be surprised. He's going to be a pain in the neck. He's going to be an irritant for Boston. He's going to go to the net. That's where he scores a bunch of his goals. I like what we saw offensively from him as well down the stretch. He scored in the last game before the end of his last game that he played. He also scored multiple goals in 3 of the last 6 games for the Sabres. Zach Benson for the Buffalo Sabres at plus 400 here at BetMGM, the best price for Zach Benson. So there you go. 2 Buffalo Sabre bargain bins. Zach Benson, plus 400. Josh Norris, plus 320. For my bargain bin specials for this Sunday night. All right, best bets. Alex, what do you got for best bet?
Yeah, let's go with the first period over in that game with Buffalo-Boston. Like I said, it's going to be a ton of electricity, ton of energy early, and I believe we're going to see at least 2 goals in the first 20 minutes of that contest. So Bruins Sabres, first period over 1.5, minus 122. That'll be my best bet for day 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Good stuff indeed. My best bet, I am going to go with the full game over for the late game. Utah and Vegas will go, because there are some 5.5s out there. There's some books that have 6, but I'm seeing FanDuel minus 140. I'm seeing the score bet, some others minus 130, minus 135. So there are some better prices out there on the 5.5. Shop around, see if you can get the 5.5, but that's what I'm going to go with. You know, I think Utah offensively is always a threat, but I don't like the way their defense and their goaltending and the form of it went down. And headed, in a negative direction down the stretch. And that could be bad news here in this first road playoff game against Vegas. So we'll go with Utah, Vegas, over 5.5, minus 130 for my best bet here for this Sunday NHL card. Shout out to everyone in the chat. I do want to address Joey's question. No draws at all? You know we love draw season. We do. Alex, you can speak on this, and I'll just say my piece quickly. Not big on draws in game ones. For some reason, I'm not. I think it's more of a tone setter game. I think as the intensity and the urgency ramps up later in the series, that's when we get more of our draws, more of our overtime games. Alex, you can speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the draw yesterday in Philly, Pittsburgh. It had that kind of a pace, but I just don't feel like there's going to be that kind of pace in any of these 4 games, necessarily in game 1. But down the line, there will be draws. Plays for sure, like I said, in situations where it makes sense. So yeah, no draws today, but they'll be coming.
Trust me, we will have draws on the card frequently later on in the first round, no question. But yeah, that's for me. I just find that game 1's the frequency of games going past regulation, are lesser than they are later in the series. No doubt. And a good stat by Jonathan. First round on a 37-13 run for goals being decided by 2+ goals. Well, there you have it. There you go. That's going back time. Now, it's just any game, but still quite the stat there. All right, good stuff. That's a wrap. We're out of here. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For Alex P. Smith, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy the games and good luck. And we will see you tomorrow on Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern for another edition of the Ice Guys.